because of the very negative state of society, but speaking in a general sense in this country, and of course in all other countries of the world, is in a rather negative state, saturated by the negativity that exists. And of course, the great fight we are fighting as members of NSK, in front of the bronze, battling my bondage, every day, is that very negative state. So it seems to me that Sensei is saying, these are your great points. Please, not only don't forget them, but revive them. He doesn't dwell on the negative side of the British people in this poem. It's as if he's saying to us, you know that only too well. You see it all around in the present day. These are the great points. This is what you should build on. Recognize in yourselves individually and expand it and spread this revival of the greatness of the British people wherever you go. He's calling for a revival. And as you heard yesterday, one of the attributes Nam-myoho-renge-kyo is that very matter of revival. But this is the aim of this poem. So I'm sure you understand that if you take the world as a whole, each country or race of people has its natural, innate nature and character, just as the individual does. So the sum total of the natures and characters of all the individuals of a particular race of people in a country gives you the nature, innate nature and character of that country as a whole. Every country is very different. You can think about the French people who have characteristics that we don't have. You can think about the Germans or the Poles or the Peruvians, or the Argentinians, each with specific aspects in their character, which you describe as great points. But also, of course, the other side of the coin, which is the negative point. But if you take all the countries of the world, what Buddhism is saying is blend these great points together. Great points of the French, the great points of the Germans, the English, the Indians, and so on. And you can create perfect whole. Just like the parts of the body, which are so different, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, toes, fingers, feet, arms, all so different, aren't they? Yet together they create this wonderful whole, which is called the human body. In exactly the same way, the great characteristics of each people's work can create a wonderful whole, which is a harmonious, peaceful planet Earth. This is what the movement, because the movement is aiming within each individual, bringing out of those great things. And through this, creating a great, peaceful, planned, progressive, dynamic, wise, passionate world. Such a wonderful concept. So in this sense, this poem is eternal. So long as this planet exists, so long as there is a United Kingdom, Great Britain, so long as these islands that we live on are there, this will exist. This is the significance of this poem, because it's fundamental to us, to our people, and to this country. That is my general feelings about it. So in tackling this poem, I divided it up into three parts or sections, the way in which all Buddhists taught, which I mentioned yesterday: preparation, revelation, transmission. And then within that, I divided it into sections based on the matters covered in each section of the poem. So it might help if you make a note of that. It'll help you when you really begin to study and chant about this poem yourself. So, of course, we begin with part one, preparation. And the first section, which Robert is going to read, I gave it the title of An Appraisal of the British People. An appraisal of the British people. Incidentally, members from Ireland, I'm sorry you've got to sit through this, but maybe it'll help you to understand the good side and the bad side of your neighbors. So this is grand language, isn't it? The United Kingdom, once the Lord of the Seven Seas, embraced the majestic dream. Sensei chooses his words carefully. It was a majestic dream in terms of majesty, because this dream, empire, which he's referring to here, really came to its ultimate fruition in the reign of Queen Victoria. But this dream, of course, varied with the person. No doubt, the traders, businessmen, manufacturers, some of the politicians, it was a greedy dream. It was a matter of markets for the products of the Industrial Revolution. But to an amazing degree, and I can speak on this because I was born while this dream still existed, and I grew up within this dream. To an amazing degree, a great many people of all types and all classes believed in the nobility of this dream. They honestly did. They felt that the British people, with their democratic system and their sense of justice and fairness, could actually give something to the world. And this was the motivation in the later stages, particularly of Queen Victoria's reign, for that expansion and creation of the British Empire. Of course, it was arrogant, but it was in fact, it didn't. People of those days didn't see that at all. They really felt in their hearts they could give something to the world. Justice, democracy, and of course, Christianity. So this was the driving force behind it. And even the simplest person, farmer in his fields, laborer tilling the soil, soldier, sailor, had something of that in their life. And he ends by saying, simple and honest, yet dauntless are you. Dauntless, perhaps, in the sense that when our backs are to the wall, our history has shown that we're at our best. In Dunkirk, outnumbered, in the Battle of Waterloo, for example, outnumbered when we fought the Spanish Armada, outnumbered when we fought the Battle of Trafalgar. Always under those circumstances, it seems the best of the character of the British people would appear. And particularly when the human rights of freedom of speech and freedom of worship, when these were threatened, which they were by the threat of dictatorships, in the case of Napoleon and later of Hitler, brought out the greatness in us in those adverse circumstances. So I feel that in this appraisal of the British people, as I call it, Sensei is pointing this out. And indeed, we must still, to this day, defend those human rights. We must continue, mustn't we? Be dauntless. Okay? The first Sensei says, hold your heads high, because you gave the world in these times democracy. So this is something that we must treasure. The democratic system, even at this point in time, is threatened on the extreme right, threatened on the extreme left. It always will be threatened, no doubt, by people who go to extremes. But we have to defend it with our whole lives. How do we defend it? The democratic system in this country is not perfect by any means. But we, through the wisdom of the dons working in our lives, over the span of our lifetime, can make it better in our own ways by using it properly. We have no time today to go into such matters. But this is our heritage. It's a precious one. And we don't just accept it as it is, but as ordinary citizens, through using it, through developing it in our local neighborhoods and communities, just by using it, we can revive it and make it greater and better, even in our one lifetime we can do it. So, of course, I don't mean that all of us will be active in politics. I mean as ordinary citizens, though some of you may become interested in politics. This is our heritage. We have to not only just defend it, we've got to make it more valuable than ever. This is my view. Our chance, with the wisdom of the Buddha working in us, to make it even better. Never to be complacent, because always those freedoms are being threatened by the devilish force of life, which we learn to understand through this practice. We've seen extreme movements in our history fail. The greatest examples was Oliver Cromwell and his Puritan movement, an extreme movement, and it failed. We have seen hedonism, people living just for pleasure in the period that followed that period of the Commonwealth, as it was called, when Cromwell became protector or dictator of this country, followed by the reign of Charles II, when people began to run wild. We see hedonism in charge of things today, constantly fluctuating from one extreme to another, from the Puritanism of the Victorian age, a Hippocratic time, if ever there was, swung over now to the state we're in today. But in the end, always we come back to the middle one, in a natural way. It's fortunate that in our innate character, really, the British people don't like extremes. So these movements don't last. The beginning of World War II, or just before it, Sir Oswald Mosley tried to create a fascist state. They were called black shirts, and they wore jackboots like the Nazis. They failed. So ours truly is the way of no extreme. And long, long may it last, I said. And I'm sure you feel the same too. Once you go to extremes, freedom is lost. Freedom must be defended. Why speakers call such an attraction to foreign visitors? It's just the very fact that in many, many countries of this world, you can't stand up on a soapbox and say exactly what you like about the Queen or the government or Maggie Thatcher or whatever. The foreign countries, this is amazing. So this is our heritage. We have to defend it. Then the final part of that bit Robert read, then they says, very important word that should be dug deep into our hearts. Violence is defeat of humanity, discourse and expression of humanity. You see violence breaking out in all sorts of different ways in our own country. This is disaster. We have to defend our belief in dialogue. Winston Churchill said, didn't he? Or he's supposed to have said, jaw is better than war. That's a great truth. So we have to defend this matter of dialogue, which is the basis of the becoming exhausted, or words to go. We are all born with a measure of good fortune and a measure of misfortune. We can see people, I saw it in myself, whose natural good fortune, in other words, the good fortune of the cause and effect pattern of their lives, has actually become exhausted. This happened to me when I reached the age of 40. It happens to other people at varying times in their lives. To some people in the last 5 years of their, or 10 years of their life. Because people have got no means to generate more good fortune. Therefore, inevitably, that good fortune becomes exhausted. Many members of our men's division have talked with the same experience. Their good fortune running out. Some of you may feel your good fortune ran out when you were even 19 or 20. So we have to replace it. How do we replace it? Only by chanting Nam-myoho. Through this way, and through the great causes we make, we can build good fortune again. And over the first few years of our practice, as Sensei once said, we are laying the causes for that good fortune. Maybe over 5 or 6 years. In the 7th year and on, we begin to see, sometimes earlier, that good fortune beginning to well up in our lives again. Anything, in other words, of this practice beginning to appear. This is where this country has reached. How are the people of this country going to build good fortune? Only by a great many practices this Buddhism and sharing out that good fortune to those who don't practice, who support and see the greatness of our movement. This is the way it will unfold in the future, in my belief. To our early pioneers, an ode to our early pioneers. Well, 26 years ago, Mrs. Lynch enshrined her Buddhism in this country. The first gongs ever to be enshrined in a permanent sense here. She was joined by Katie Baines, Ricky Baines' wife, about 2 years later, and then by Barbara Cahill, who came from the United States via France to this country. And then they persuaded Ricky to practice, and so on. Actually, the first British mentor was Pat Allworth. Some of you may know her, some of you may not, but she's the editor of the UK Express. But these were the people who began it all. And of course, were joined by many others in the next few years, gradually, step by step. There was nothing exclusive, you notice, in a national sense about the way First People began in this country or any other country. It was brought to us by Japanese ladies. It was brought to Scotland by Japanese ladies. The case of Barbara Cahill by an American lady. Eddie Cahill, Barbara's husband, headquarters chief of Atlantic headquarters, was Chuck Wilford in the United States. Myself, of course, my wife, Chuck Wilford in Japan. This is the way it came. So our gratitude goes out far beyond the boundaries of this matter. That is where our social movement began. And I hope that all of you who are young will never forget those early pioneers who, through incredible guts and effort, on their own, on people in this country, chanted hour after hour after hour, so that today we can hold summer courses like this. Very moving prayer. I don't think we have any of those very earliest pioneers here today, but certainly there is one very early pioneer, whose memory of his visit to this country, as you see, when he came to complete his dialogues with Dr. Tony. That book, called Choose Life, strangely has never been properly distributed and sold in this country. I hope we can win this long battle against the negative resistance of life and get it distributed much more widely in future years, because also that book will live for a long, long time yet. It's a great document. We've used it now for study in a New Century group, and it's amazing how much value one can get from it. So this was a great moment in Sensei's life. This was his very first dialogue with a personage who was famous as a historian and a philosopher. Many, many more dialogues have followed. And many of the people that he's had dialogues with since were recommended by Dr. Toynbee himself, Sensei. So this was a turning point in Sensei's life, and a turning point, really, in terms of post-Rufu of the world, and an unforgettable memory. And the few members we had at that time supported in every way they could, typing, trying to do KB in a slightly primitive way, BCG, trying to help. Sensei then invited about 30 or 35, I think it was, probably, to a place called the Waterside Inn, Bray-on-Thames. That was on the 19th of May, I think I'm right to say, 1973. And they had dinner together. And after dinner, they bombarded Sensei with questions. A great question and answer session. Japanese leaders who were there were astounded, because such a possibility is very difficult to achieve in Japan itself, where there were millions of members. Chance to be able to sit with Sensei for an hour and a half, just asking questions. And questions were very profound. So amazed Japanese leaders were. I was still living in Japan at that time, but when one of them got back from Mr. Miyake, he rushed to my house. And he had in his notebook a complete record of all the questions that had been asked and the answers that Sensei gave. and sat down with my wife and I and told us the whole story. He was bubbling over inside. Then Sensei goes on, for this very reason, my ladies and gentlemen, successors of your great cosmopolitan ancestors, inheriting the tradition of dialogue with the heart, have you expanded the forum to invite these inhabitants. In other words, from those small beginnings, the movement which is NSUK has grown. Great cosmopolitan ancestors, something we shouldn't forget. Ancient Britons, Celts, Saxons, Romans, Norman, Viking, all this blood is in our blood. And in the future, the blood as well of West Indians, Starlets, Southeast Asians, Chinese. What it's like the whole world in microcosm in this country now. This is a wonderful thing. You yourselves are the valley who in your heart embrace the perpetual emblem of splendor, the emblem of a true world citizen. This is Sensei having a go at us. The end of nations. We are world citizens. As a matter of fact, we always have been. Yet some foolish people harbor in their hearts racial prejudice. Let's live always trying to be world citizens, with great big minds, not narrow, miserable little minds. In Paris, Sensei said at the end of one of his talks, suddenly it just came. He said, please don't have narrow minds. Please open your heart and embrace the whole world. Move me very much, those few words. Lots of members said later, what about what the Sensei said? The only thing I could remember was that don't have narrow minds. Open your heart and embrace the whole world. Where do we do it? Where do we develop such an expanded life? Nowhere else but in front of the gong. In front of the gong so that we can embrace everybody in our life. If we live in South London or Glasgow, we can embrace the whole of Scotland, the whole of Ireland, North and South. I know our Irish members do. They are faced with a great problem in their own country. It's a spur to embrace the whole people of that planet. We should do the same, not miserable little puny outlook, just taking in into the miserable area. You always wear some squashed up and live just open in front of the gongs, and if we open our lives in front of the gongs and expand our insulin in that way, that is the way we'll live. This is the way to achieve. That we've always been an inventive country. We produced many inventors of many amazing developments in terms of science and technology. Yet often we don't exploit that inventiveness, use it for. We're extraordinarily bad as a nation. If you like, advertising our own weapons. But perhaps that inventiveness is because practicality of our mind, not relying on theory. Then he says, free of prejudice are your views and thoughts. I wish that were true today. It was a characteristic, but it's gone like many of these other characteristics, slipping and sliding gradually and disappearing from view. You people who are young, they find it even hard to believe that these are the British characteristics, because you've grown up in a world where they've been disappearing. They began to slide and slip through World War I. 21 years later, they slipped and slid more in World War II, and all the social upheaval which that caused. But these are the characteristics. And I think if you reflect on things, you can begin to see those characteristics, people who know or read yourself. Free of prejudice, this dislike of extremes, which is so important. That is protecting minorities. Yet today we see minorities threatened in this country. This is disaster. We have to revive. I know we are. That's one thing. We are in a natural way to working as performance. There is no greater desire, I know, from the people in South London to make, for example, Brixton a truly happy place to live. And I'm sure there is no greater desire in the hearts of the members who live in Birmingham chapter here than to see all the people, Birmingham, of all backgrounds. And if that desire lives in our lives, then promoted, activated by chanting, not brilliant.